Welcome to Session 3 of Torrent 2019. In this session, we're hearing from our guest speaker, Mark Wargo. Pastor Mark Wargo is lead pastor of Cross Current Church in Port Huron, Michigan, and author of Beyond Betrayal.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another hot edition of Torrent. I don't think there will ever be a torrent where it won't be hot. But yesterday it was a low of 43 back home, and now it's 62. And you know, it's Michigan, when it starts getting into 60s, because we walk around in shorts and T-shirt, and everybody's like, summer's here, and it's 60. But, sweetie, when Pastor was speaking over you, I was thinking about you prior, which was really bizarre. So he cheated. He looked at my notes. But I really, when he was speaking, it came really clear. There was this deal of you coming into an arena and sitting. But I saw Jesus walking up and taking you by the hand and taking you to the sweet seats. You know, the upper press box where you can see everything? And it's like, wow, I just don't feel worthy. And so some of us just are happy to be in the arena, but I feel like Father has set it up for you to have a sweet seat. So just relax. Be you. Continue to fall in love with Him and watch what happens. Shut up. Hey-oh. I feel like tomorrow night I don't think you're going to want to miss tomorrow night. You're already here, so I can't say don't miss tonight. But tomorrow night, I really feel like there's going to be some things released, not broken, because you guys have already done that. Yeah. But there's going to be some things released. And I feel like there's going to be some things released over women tomorrow night. I think there's going to be some things released over giftings tomorrow night. And I'm just so stoked about what Father is going to do tomorrow night. So we might start at 4. Someone's got a job. Well, we'll go live. Just watch your phones. Oh, boy. So, y'all feeling saved tonight? Good. We just really appreciate it. We got to go to Milli Vanillyville, and we got to get some custard over there. And, man, it was good, right? It was awesome. Is it not Milli Vanillyville? Milledgeville. So, yeah, we got to go there. It was really good today. What's that? Millie Vegas. But tonight, I want to minister on this topic that has been just, when Pastor asked me to come a while back, I always get 8 different messages that kind of begin to roll around in my heart. And so I feel like this one has landed for tonight. And I want to talk about hope's resolve. I want to talk about hope's resolve and our response. Is that okay? I want to talk about this idea that happens with every single person that follows Jesus. Every single person that has ever said yes to Jesus. Can I just say, stuff happens?
Yeah, all right. Sure. All right, yeah.
And I'm speaking tonight from a place of just realness, which I try to always do, and not with all the answers, but just some things that the Lord has given me out of 2 Chronicles. And so I just want to start with this thought, that you will never, ever know His great faithfulness until your faith in His fullness has been tested and proved. I'm going to say that again just so we can get that. We won't know the fullness of His faithfulness, the greatness of His faithfulness. We sing the songs, great is thy faithfulness, and we love His faithfulness. Amen. Your faithfulness, and all the Psalms with it. But how many of you know it requires us and our faith in his fullness to be tested and proven? Then we realize how faithful our God is. You see, when you get put at a door and there's a flame on the other side, and you get thrown in some flames, and you find out later that Jesus is walking around in the flames with you, then you know how faithful he is. But when you're standing at the door, you're like, God, where are you? What is your deal, man? Have you forgotten about me? He goes, no, I just want to show you something great. And when you're standing at the edge of the water and you got all of your past following you, Pharaoh, and they want to kill you and destroy you, and you think, well, it's better just leave me back in slavery than to bring me out here and die. And you got a water right here, and you got an enemy coming out over here, and you're like, what's going on, God? Did you forget about me? You see, you don't know the fullness of his faithfulness until your faith in his fullness has been tested and proved, and until you see him begin to part the waters where there didn't seem to be any way at all. And so I find that many people, they're in different seasons. They're in seasons of, you're at a place where you're asking God, where are you? What's your deal? I prayed, I've given, I fasted, I stood on my head, I did all the jumping jacks, and still I find myself at a place where if you don't part the waters or make some bridge or strike all those dudes that are following me, if you don't clean up this health issue, if you don't do something financially, if you don't bring something in for my business, I'm going to die here. I'm going to die. And I don't believe that God is the kind of God that says, I'm going to play a good trick on my kids. Yeah. Amen. I don't believe he's the kind of God that says, I don't go up to my son and say, watch this one, Tracy. I'm going to flatten his tires. I'm going to put sand in his gas tank just so he learns to trust me. That's just stupid. I'm going to go into his bank account and I'm going to disguise myself and I'm just going to start pulling money out so he knows where his provider, where his stuff comes from. I just don't think our Father does that, but we also know that life happens. We also know that things are going to pop up. We also know that things are going to happen. And sometimes we stand with a fist with God and we're like, what's your deal? And God didn't do it at all. And so what I want to get us to tonight is this heart that says, come hell or high water, I'm resolved. I'm resolved. I'm resolved. That kind of... See, only people who have been through it and come out the other side understand what I'm talking about. When I say, come hell or high water, I'm resolved. You see, if you haven't been through some stuff, and listen, getting a splinter is not going through it. Somebody calling you a Jesus freak is not going through it. That's a compliment when you finally understand what they're saying. But when you have your heart and soul poured into something in the kingdom, and others come and they begin to rip it to shreds and rip it out and betray you and backstab and pull you apart and rip your name through the mud and begin to destroy you with their words, and you can't do anything about it, and you still stay resolved and you come out on the other side, you know what I'm talking about. When you've done everything you know to do to serve God, to love God, and you still find yourself in messes that other people have made. And you came out on the other side. You know what I'm talking about. Where there is no hope for the future, there is no power for the present. where there is no hope in the future for your marriage, there's no power in the present for you to even change or to even think that it could change. When there's no hope in the future for your health, there's no power in the present to believe that he is a God of miracles. When there's no hope for the future for your finances, and there's no power and faith to give, to believe that better could be, that he could open doors that no man can shut. And we start looking at the doors that he's closing, and we sing he's a good, good father, but we're believing he's a bad, bad father. Where there's no hope for the future. There's no power for the present. So this story is probably one of my all-time favorites in the Bible, and it's 2 Chronicles chapter 20. So I got a question. Have you ever had just bad news show up? It's really funny that I'm talking about this right now, because 2 hours ago I just talked to my mom and found out she does have lung cancer. So I'm preaching this, and I'm talking to her, first of all, and we're having this conversation, and I don't feel like poor me. I'm not saying that to be a victim. I'm saying that this is real life stuff here. I'm your brother. I'm a pastor, but I'm your brother today talking about real life stuff. Have you ever been faced with just stinking bad news? And so this guy we woke up one morning, alarm clock goes off, the rooster goes off, whatever they had back then. It seems like in the Bible they never slept. Have you ever noticed that? How many stories start out with "and early in the morning"? Why can't they say "and late in the afternoon"? Right? How many like to sleep in? You're late owls. You stay up till 2 or 4. If I wrote a Bible, I'd be like, "and later in the afternoon, God showed up." Because in the morning, I was sleeping. You know what I mean? Now, some prophetic person that you just woke up is going to be like, "Now, Pastor, early in the morning does mean something prophetically." I know it does, but let's just be real. Early in the morning for them was like early. Dumb early, like 4 or 5, 6. There is a dumb early up north. How many know what I'm talking about? There's a dumb early. You know it's true because every time your alarm goes off, you're like, "This is dumb." You just be all mad about it. You're like, "I'm waking up on my 6th coffee." And it's the truth. But what happens in verse 2, it says that some people came and told Jehoshaphat, "A vast army is coming." Not even good morning. Yeah, good morning, here's your coffee, here's some fan and some grapes. By the way, there's a vast army that is coming against you from Edom and from the other side of the Dead Sea, and is already at this funky place, Tamar. And in verse 3, alarmed, Jehoshaphat resolved. Verse 3. Are you all right, Pastor? Pastor's been at the bar. I mean the tequila bar. Those that understand praise, you're like, "Did he say tequila?" I said tequila. Some of you need to get up and have a shot. Tequila. You're like, "I could use some joy in my life." Try that first. Verse 3. Security. I have an anointed word to share tonight. You know what? It says I have 19 minutes. I need you to add 10 on account of distractions up here. Verse 3 says, alarmed. Now, I love it when they write words in here like, it's almost like he went, "Oh, wow." Oh, my goodness. 3 armies are coming against me, and they're larger than me. It's like, really? Okay, that's fun. It's almost like if I was to write this stuff, I'd be like, the man freaked out. Even though he resolved in his heart to inquire of the Lord, the man, I'm sure in the Message translation, it says the man freaked. See, there's something that happens in our hearts way prior to hearing the bad news. There's something that needs to happen. You see, because I believe our lives are built on habits. Yeah, the reason why some of you are negative is because you possibly were raised in an environment of negativity and you just thought it was normal. This is how we talk in our home. Then you show up at somebody's house and you're like, wow, they don't talk that way. They don't rip their kids apart. They don't rip each other apart. They don't do water cooler talk about their wives and their husbands. So things become habit. They become learned behaviors. And I just want to give you something, because this is important to know. I love to study on the brain. My wife and I love to study on the brain. We love to study how long it takes to renew an area of your mind. And you know, an initial thought actually takes, a new thought actually takes 3 years to develop a protective barrier around that new thought. It takes 3 years. Universities used to be 3 years until they found out they could make money. Now it's 4, 6, 8, 12, and 19. That's why Jesus spent 3 years. This is why the guys in the Old Testament spent 3 years learning the ways. But I did this study one time on negative thinking. It says that we have 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Most of them we don't even realize we're making thoughts of. You know, we're having thoughts, but I have probably 150. My mind is like, it's like crazy. People are like, I want to know how you think. No, you don't. You really don't. But how many know what I'm talking about? Your mind is just constant. I'm sleeping and having thoughts. Sometimes I think I'm sleeping and I got my pen and I'm writing at the same time something, or I'm typing on my phone. 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day. On average, 2,500 to 3,300 per hour. Now, I want you to, this is the most important part that I found in this study. 70 to 80% of them are negative. They put these little stickers on brains, right? And they know how to study brains, and so they do that. And could you imagine on the computer, positive thoughts, negative thoughts, and 70 to 80%, boom, boom, just negative thoughts, just triggering, just going. Yeah. What's interesting about the study, that means, let's just lower the number a little bit. Let's say it's even 60,000 that we have a day, or some of you that might not think a whole lot. You're 50,000. Remember, this is average, so somebody's got to be low, and somebody's got to be high, so we average each other. So let's just say it was 35 to 42,000 thoughts a day, and they're negative, right? Let's say how many thoughts of those 50, 70 are negative. Now, this is what's really intriguing. These scientists and studies showed that 90% of them are carryovers from the day before. So, most of us wake up in a negative thought process, if not all. So to wake up with this kind of news, not, here's your coffee, how you doing, sir? I hope you slept well. Hey, you got a vast army that's coming against you, and they're stronger than you, and they've ganged up, and they're about to show up, and yet, even in his mindset, there was something at the core of him that resolved to inquire of the Lord.
Come on.
See, I believe with all of my heart that some of us delay the very answers that the Father wants to give us to get through that issue because we refuse the resolve of the Lord, and we retreat into fear mode. We retreat into what if this would happen, and we retreat to all kinds of negativity because that is a practice for us. I believe we can create an environment and create habits to resolve our hearts to inquire of the Lord when it's good and when it's not good. It's amazing how many times since I've done this study, how I've got to, I don't even realize it sometimes, but your mind starts reeling in a negative direction, and you're so used to it. And there's times I've been driving down the road, and I'd be like, stop. Hammer time. The younger generation be like, what? Just Google it. You know what I'm saying? Right? I just gave you some of my background there. Hey, I used to wear the really colorful Velcro pants, man, that came across. MC Hammer pants. I used to have a lot of hair, boofy hair. I had it going on. But there's so many times I'd be driving down the road. There'd be so many times, and as a leader, and if you're a leader or a business owner, or if you have kids, negative news is pretty much a... How often do you hear positive news? And when you do, you're like, oh, wait a minute, is there anything else that's come along with it? You know you got a breakthrough in your home if your son's healthy for one day and not pooping and throwing up everywhere. Ain't that the truth? But what's coming around the corner? And so many times I have to stop it. I don't even realize that the negative thought is swirling. Why? Because it's so habitual. It's so ingrained because they're carryovers from the day before. Exactly. And it becomes a generational cycle. It becomes a family cycle. And sometimes we're like, well, I'm so steeped in negative. Why don't we just live there? Because it's too hard to change it anyway. That's right. That's it. This guy had something in his heart that I want to grab onto at a different level. He knew and heard that the vast army was coming against him. He knew that they were stronger than him. He knew that they already had a head start. And doesn't it feel like that every time you get the news and every time you feel like the enemy is pushing in, every time you feel the resistance, you feel like the enemy has a head start. You feel like he's already knocking at the door. Have you ever felt that way? And you're like, man, I feel like behind the 8 ball. And I want to tell you today, God is never shocked by a battle. He's not shocked by my mom's bad news. He's not shocked by your bad news. He's not shocked by it. But the issue is, will you and I resolve, and will we back up a bit, take a breath, and inquire of the Lord till Father speaks? So let me tell you, if Father is not surprised by the battle, then that means He's got an answer to get you through it. Can I give you something today? God never allows a fight that He didn't plan on you winning.
Yep. That's right. Yep. All right. Okay.
Now that's the kind of word that very few will shout and start swinging from this one light. Come on. Please don't. I hope it's anchored. The anchor of hope. I want you to think about that for more. If He's not surprised by a battle, and He never allows a fight that He doesn't plan on you winning. Now, some of us are looking at this from a natural perspective. Some of us are looking at a natural perspective of saying, then if God, is not surprised and God never allows a fight that he wasn't planning on me winning, then why did this person pass away? Why did this happen? And why did that happen? And why did this happen over here? And why did that happen? If I'm supposed to win, then how come I'm not winning every battle? And the fact that you got back up off the canvas is proven to the spiritual darkness and the spiritual world and even yourself that you are winning. So I say this to you, you're doing a lot better than what you realize. You got back off the canvas. My mom and I were talking earlier today, and it's like, this is the way the Lord wants to take her home. I'm going to celebrate that I got 70 years or however many years with her, 40, whatever, 50, whatever. Now, am I standing and still believing? Are we declaring that he's a God of miracles? Heck yeah, I am. But until her last breath, we are going to be found guilty of faith. Hear the bad news? Resolve in our heart to inquire of the Lord. Father, you're not surprised by this, so what are you saying? Trust me. Okay. Father, you're not surprised by this. So what am I supposed to do? And I promise you, your Father is so good that when you inquire of him, when you resolve your heart to inquire of him, he will have something to say. He'll have something to say. I like that about him. Ooh, don't you? Are we okay today? So he goes through this process of inquiring, and he hears from the prophets, and he hears from the man of God, and they begin to speak about some things. And in verse 15, doesn't give him any clear instructions right away. All he says in verse 15 is, do not be afraid or discouraged because of this vast army. For the battle is not yours, it's God's. Yeah. Now, I know in the practical there are some things that we have to do when battles show up. But I am convinced, having been doing this for so long, and even my own experiences, we get ourselves involved in battles that God never intended for us to be in. We start calling out the devil, and the devil wasn't even in the story yet. Right? The Lord ministered to me a long time ago. He says, you know what? If you really realize the way I see things, the devil's already defeated. Stop calling him into the game. Every time you call the devil in, you're just empowering him and you're giving him credit. So he says, do not be afraid or discouraged because of this vast army, for the battle is not yours, but it's the Lord's. And I jump all the way to verse 20, and he goes on. He says, listen to me, Judah and people of Jerusalem, have faith in the Lord your God, and you will be upheld. Have faith in the prophets, and you will be successful. I'm so thankful that the seers and the hearers and the knowers and the feelers are coming alive in this place again. The fog is lifting. Because as this church moves forward, and you're blazing that trail that we talked about on Sunday, we're going to need the seers and the feelers and the knowers and the hearers. And y'all are going to hear and feel and know and see. And you're going to have to relax because we're going to go in step with what the Father's doing. We're not going to run out ahead of them. A to the men, somebody. Yeah. We're going to stay in step. Some of you are going to see 5 years down the road, and you're going to need to relax because that's not for 5 years down the road. It's not for today. And I'm so glad here that he, it shows us that he talked to the prophets, and the prophets begin to say, and you'll be successful. When you get a hold of the prophets and the prophetess, the women, I'll say it that way, you'll be successful. In other words, when you get the word of the Lord, when you hear what he's saying and do it, you're going to be successful. I know you don't like, some of us, you don't like the way the story's going sometimes, and you don't like, the way things end up in certain areas. I don't either, but I've been successful with every step of the way because I've made it a practice to resolve my heart to inquire. Amen. I haven't done it perfect, but I've made a practice to see what people do, especially, I talk to people because the people I pastor and the experiences I've had is people have an issue and they freak out. And they panic. Because that's a practice. That's a habit for you. And they want prayer because they want the man or a woman of God to clean it up for them. Now, there's nothing wrong with going to the man or woman of God, but it would be nice to pray with somebody once in a while and then to be like, Pastor, I resolved my heart and I inquired of the Lord and I'm hearing this. Will you pray with me and see what you feel in this? Rather than fix all my boo-boos. See, he didn't decide to inquire of the Lord after all the prophets spoke. After all the stuff happened, he inquired of the Lord, and his journey began the moment he heard the news. He resolved in his heart to inquire. Yep. Then he engaged the people around him. Yep. And then began to move out. What would happen if hope had a resolve in such a way? We're talking about hope in all things. If you're going to have hope in all things, then my guess is you're going to have some situations that look very hopeless. You're going to be around people that are very hopeless. Yep. God's not going to take a hope-filled person and send them to another hope-filled person to fill them up with hope. God's going to take a hope-filled person and get you around a bunch of weirdos, and he's going to be like, help them with hope. And he'd be like, don't call them weirdos. We were. Yeah. And the Lord sent somebody to us. Amen. How many weirdos we got in the house? I'm sure that's in the message translation somewhere. It's probably in 1 Opinions, chapter 2. And what happens is, after consulting the people, Jehoshaphat in verse 21 said, he appointed men to sing to the Lord and to praise him for the splendor of his holiness as they went out ahead of the army. I'll tell you what, worship team, I feel like the Lord's going to minister to you tomorrow night. Amen. Amen. Because I believe there's a refreshing coming over this worship. You guys have been plowing. You have been digging. You have been writing. You have been in the grind of this particular field, and no one else knows what you guys go through. No one else knows of the times you get up early, the times you're up late, you're practicing, the grind of this worship. And sometimes you don't feel like you're making any impact because you do it so much day in and day out. And I believe the Lord is telling you, your value in the things that are going on in this church and the steps that are about to be taken will require you to be fresh. Amen. Will require you to be relaxed. Will require you, because I'm telling you, there's so many battles where the Lord would put the worshipers out at the lead. Yeah. Yeah. You're blazing the ground a lot more than what you realize. You guys, I'm telling you, there is an amazing deal going on. But he says this. He doesn't give them a big worship song. He just says, out ahead of the army, and he says, just give thanks to the Lord, and his love endures forever. I just love how he makes it simple. Can you imagine all these people, right? They know they're about to go out to battle, and all you give us are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 words. I want something deeper. No one else has ever said that in church, right? We've moved past the simplicity of what the Spirit is doing because we want something deeper because of how it makes you feel. I mean, if we had a real spiritual song here, my God, we'd really feel like warriors. We had this song in the 90s, I can run through a troop and leap over the walls of the enemy. And man, we were dancing and singing, whoa, what's up? And we'd go home and be defeated. Give me more than 10 songs. Give me more than this song. I want something that's more spiritual. And it was amazing as he just came. All right, here's the word of the Lord. We got 3 vast armies coming against us. They're all bigger than us and stronger than us. They actually got a head start on us. And they've combined. Good morning, everybody. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk together singing, give thanks to the Lord, his love endures. What? No eye of the tiger? It's the eye of the tiger, it's a thrill. I'd be singing that one, man. I'd be like, let's go, bro. Our brothers would be out there. We'd be fighting, wrestling. No, we're just going to walk. Yeah, that's real manly. I mean, think about this for a moment, right? In our everyday world, it's like, I believe strongly we do miss, we move through the simplicity of what the Spirit is doing. These guys got together, they walked, and they said, okay, let's do it together then. At least if we're going to do this, let's sound manly. Give thanks to the Lord, for his love endures forever. Can you imagine the first time they did it? You know, Johnny's looking at Paul, we're going to die. We're dead. We're going to walk up there and we're singing, give thanks to the Lord for the love endures. And these guys are bigger than us. We're dead. Look at Eugene over there, man. That guy's screwed up. He can barely carry his sword, and he's going to walk out with us. Look at Bob over there. Bob needs to eat more meat. You know, I'd be having these conversations. I'd really be looking around being like, oh, man, we in trouble. Give thanks to the Lord for his love endures. I can imagine the first couple of times it was kind of like, give thanks to the Lord for his love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord for his love endures forever. I imagine after the first little bit, they may, okay, let's put some emphasis on it. Let's get some manliness in this thing. Give thanks to the Lord, for his love endures forever. You know, and they begin to sing this. They begin to shout it. I can imagine by the time they got there, they were either really tired out and didn't want to say it anymore, or they were shouting and shouting and shouting. I imagine that was the second one, that they were shouting. If we're going to go down, we're going to go down swinging. See, they thought they were going to go into a fight. They thought they were going to have to get messy and bloody, and people were going to die, and other people were going to die. They thought this was going to get real. But they didn't realize something was going on when they started, even in their weakness of their faith. They didn't realize that God was already up to something. The moment they resolved in their heart, the moment they stepped back, they already got the inquiring of the Lord, but now they all had to resolve. And I believe they took it from leadership. If leadership is resolved, I'm going to be resolved. If that man's going to be confident, I'm going to be confident. If these two are going to blaze this trail, I'm going to blaze this trail with them. If these two are going to believe in the midst of it, I'm going to believe with them. And so what happens is more and more and more people begin to resolve, and God began to shake it up. God began to move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. Like to move it. Thank you. What is happening at this church today? I am never going to get welcome back again. Jesus, take the wheel. Listen, they didn't know, and this is what I want you to know. When they resolve, and when we resolve, and we begin to open up our mouths. I don't care if you believe it fully or not. When you begin to open up your mouths and you begin to declare, Father, I don't understand it, but I'm going to trust you. Father, I don't understand it, but I'm going to have faith in you. God, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I'm going to trust in you. God begins to shake it up. God begins to do something in a realm that you have no idea what's going to happen. And when you get there, you think it's going to be a big fight, and you get there, and it's 3 days of booty. King James Version. Some of you are like, I like the NIV. Well, plunder. Oh, we got to stop. Listen, I'm trying to be real up here. They went to this valley, and they thought the valley was going to be a valley of battle. And it turned into the valley of blessing. Come on. 3 days. Come on. What? Of booty. What? 3 days. Now, come on now. We're talking, pirate style. Right? 3 days. Listen. I want you to know something. Some of you have in your minds, because you're so trained in the 39,480 negative repeated thoughts. You're so trained to think that when you get there, it's just going to end up this way. It's going to end up just like mom and dad. It's going to end just up like my uncle. It's going to end just like my last church. And that negativity is spiraling you into that pattern. And other people are celebrating, and other people are doing, and you're looking like you're celebrating, but at the core of you is just a spiral. It's just a continual cycle of the negativity. And I want you to I got to tell somebody in here today, you are not your dad. These two are not your former leaders. You are not your mom. My God. Other people are singing, give thanks to the Lord for his love endures, and you're like, well, give thanks to the Lord, we're going to die. I just hope I go to heaven. Isn't this where we live, though? Isn't this? Yeah. Just blown away when this story, when they were expecting to show up and have this huge battle on their hands. And God says, watch how I shock my kids.
Thank you for joining us at VC2, where we are real people meeting real needs with the reality of Christ. If you haven't already, subscribe so that you don't miss out on what's happening here at VC2. Also, check us out on Instagram and Facebook as VC2 Online.